What I'm going to do today is I'm going to specifically discuss on AI agents and healthcare. Right, healthcare is one of I think the a ripe field, ripe business domain, and a ripe sector where AI agents can be used. There is a lot of documentation. There is a lot of bureaucracy involved in healthcare, so it's a great field to apply agents. But healthcare also comes with a lot of responsibility in how we are using these agents. So what I'm going to discuss today is at Innovator, how do we evaluate AI agents, right? So I think till now a lot of discussion has been how to make the best AI agents, but again, the most important thing probably is going to be how are we going to evaluate these AI agents. So okay, okay. Why evaluation? Again, I probably don't need to harp more on that, but starting from the days of good old statistics, evaluation has probably been the most important part of AI, right? And as building models has become simpler and simpler, the challenge of using those models and getting the best outcomes and evaluating those outcomes has become more challenging. And that is what are some of the applications of agentic AI in healthcare across? It is across all sections, right? Patient, provider, payer. You can count from patient prior authorization, patient experience, claims processing, clinical coding, documentation, care management. I can probably spend a day or two just highlighting what agentic AI can do in healthcare, and it's just how can we scale that. When it comes to evaluating agentic AI, there are three main challenges. One is what we call as scenarios, right? Then there are metrics. What metrics can we use to evaluate them? And lastly, it's about safety, right? How do we ensure that the agents which we are building are safe, right, to be used by the end users who are going to be patients and providers. Scenarios. Agentic AI is no longer going to be evaluated on data points. They are going to be evaluated on scenarios which are evaluated derived from this data, right? And healthcare data sets are traditionally been rare, right? There are some out there like Cynthia, Mimic 4, Medline, but beyond that, there are very, very few data sets which actually capture the longitudinal history of patients, right? For example, an example is an AI agent calling a patient to book a referral appointment, right? What are the variances which we need to simulate? Accent of the speaker, medical terminology, educational background, age, and again, there are a lot of variables which we need to simulate, and our approach has been to use grounded simulations, right? So we use actual data plus user research plus LLMs to generate very realistic scenarios, right? And those are the realistic scenarios which will combine both the edge cases as well as the happy path scenarios on which we are going to evaluate our agents. In terms of metrics, what are those metrics which we are going to use to evaluate these scenarios on? Traditional metrics like blue, rug, bud score, they are typically what we have observed is not very useful, right? Then there is a newer approach where for each scenario you create a new rubric. So recently OpenAI released their health bench, where for each scenario they would have their own rubric and then they would use LLM as a judge to evaluate the response on that scenario. That is okay for benchmarking, but for actual use cases, real world scenarios, that's not scalable. It's just there will not be, most businesses will not be having that level of human resources to do those to that level of scenario evaluation, right? So what has been our approach here? Our approach has been to create a metric taxonomy, right? We have created a entire DAG of what all metrics should look like, starting from the task completion and task efficiency to very task specific rubrics, right? For example, in conversational agents, one of the key rubric is shared decision making, where we able to arrive at a decision with consent of both the agent as well as the user, right? And then we go right to the component level metrics. Are we using RAG? Are we using code execution in our agents? Are we using tools in our agents? If that is the case, what is the individual accuracy of these components? What is the precision recall of the RAG? What is the word error rate of the speech to text transcription? So again, we are following an entire taxonomic based approach to start from the very top, where we define what is the task completion, the task efficiency, and then going down towards task specific rubrics and at a very core technical component level accuracies. And lastly, across safety, right? Again, some concerns are across the domain: hate, discrimination, abuse. I think that's throughout the agentic AI world, and there is a lot of work going on both in industry and academia on that. Two very, very important safety criteria when it comes to healthcare we have observed is PII leakage and tool misuse, right? Again, this can have catastrophic consequences when we use these agents with our doctors and providers, care coordinators, patients, etc. There are also very specific healthcare concerns like medical misinformation or medical advice. Some of our conversational agents are not supposed to give medical advice. In many cases, like a chatbot or Q&A, they are not supposed to provide medical misinformation. Even if they provide the right citation, the citation might not be credible enough, right? So how do you observe and how do you obtain those criteria and evaluate the medical misinformation is another very important topic of research and execution which we are focusing on. What's our approach here? Our approach here has been to identify what we call as vulnerability nodes, right? Most of the agents and most multi-agent architectures are typically using DAG type of or a graph-based architecture like a line graph or OpenAI agents. All of them, they have what they call as a graph architecture. What we try to do is identify what are those key vulnerable nodes. Right? Is it the tool execution node? Is it the code execution node? Is it the web search node? Right? And then for those agents, we have very specific guardrails built. And not only guardrails, we also have a policy-based remediation and detection. Right? So it's not only detecting those deviations which are not allowed, but also on the fly remediating those. Right? So that has been an overview of what our approach has been to create agents which are amenable and can be used in a healthcare domain. So yeah, agentic AI development has scaled a lot with different SDKs, but it's the quality of agentic AI evaluation which is critical in deciding how successful we will be solving in those clinical outcomes in healthcare. Thank you.